welcome to Andertons TV. My name is Jack Jesperi, he's the Maltese Falcon. And this is...
Chris Calcutt, or Calc. Hey.
My man. And this is the first video, right, for Sequential products?
Absolutely, yeah. It's first time out with the Trigon-6. I brought it over here to Andertons to give you a nice good look at it. And yeah, it's actually my first Sequential video, so yeah.
I feel very honoured. We did one many moons ago, but I'm going to irrationally fist bump and we're going to get into the video.
There we go.
I know nothing, as always. I deliberately, I saw this come out, and as soon as I see a release this big, I turn off the internet.
Yep, good.
Because I know someone like you is going to come in and tell me about it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the Trigon-6 is, it's a new design from Sequential, of course. It's Dave Smith's last synth. You know, he did the voice cards for this. He did a lot of the design work. All the voice stuff is his work in here. And it's basically a different kind of flavour from the Sequential camp. I suppose the big thing is that we've got a different type of filter that you would normally see. Now, this is a ladder filter. So this is a very kind of, should we say, traditional, well-known type of filter that was found on early MonoSynths. Yeah, he's kind of taken the notion of that style of filter and applied it to a polyphonic instrument. So the Trigon-6 kind of caps off, I wouldn't say a range necessarily, but a group of synthesizers, the Prophet 6, the OB6, and the Trigon-6, they're all in that same kind of format with the same kind of key mechanisms and that sort of thing, but just different flavors of synthesizer sounds. So the Trigon-6 is really focusing on that ladder filter sound, but with a lot of really tasty kind of new stuff in there as well.
Oh, right. Other than that, is there anything else straight off the bat, if you're familiar with, like me, I'm familiar with the Prophet 6 and the OB6.
Yep.
Is there anything else that differentiates it from those in terms of like the architecture or the effects?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I'd say about the Trigon-6 is it's got kind of more of everything. You know, it's still in that same form factor. It's still a really nice, accessible kind of synthesizer architecture with hands-on, really straightforward to get to grips with. But as I say, it's got kind of more of everything. So just the oscillators themselves here.
Let's do it. Are we going Nick back style?
Well, we can do. We can do.
But I love going through stuff.
You know, we've got 3 oscillators in here. So the OB6 and the Prophet 6 have got the 2, but so it's a really big sound, and we've got three nice sawtooths here ripping through on this particular preset. And it's just got that really big sound. So yeah, so that's one thing that the Trigon-6 has got. We've got 3 individual oscillators, each with their own control. We've got the new filters we've already mentioned. On the kind of modulation side over here with the LFO, we've got a ton of destinations. So we've got a lot more kind of destinations, places that we can connect the LFO to. Same again in the PolyMod over here. We've got PolyMod with quite a lot of different spots for the PolyMod modulation to control. AfterTouch controls here as well, again with destinations. Very much in line with the sequential notion of what you see is what you get. So no menu diving, nothing like that on here. There's, you know, it's knob per function. Everything's pretty much exposed on the top panel, so it's just instantly accessible and dead easy to get to grips with.
That seems like a good overview. I think we should listen to some audio examples, and then after the audio, can we go step by step and do like a long nick back kind of walkthrough? Should we do that?
Let's do that.
Let's do it. Come on.
Hey.
Back in the room before we go deep on this bad boy, because I really want to know about everything. By the way, there'll be chapter markers below, so if you want to just cop out and go buy the thing, there's links below. But if you want to learn more, stick around. We're going to get into the weeds, but we're also giving away things from Novation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Stuff.
When we get to 100,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, all you got to do is be a subscriber and we'll give away some stuff. Aphex Twin bass station.
Oh, lovely stuff. It's an amazing instrument. It really is.
Come on. Now, I see all of this and I want to know how it works. So can we go through it like step by step?
Yeah, for sure.
Here we go. Let's go, Falks.
So, you know, obviously I mentioned before, we've got our 3 oscillators. Really, that's kind of, there's a lot of power already just in there. I mean, here we've got this really big brassy sound, but if we want to just take it, strip it right back to a kind of initialized patch, dead simple, just press preset and write, and now we've got basically our sawtooth single oscillator in it. Yeah, so if we look at oscillator 1 here, we've got the 3 oscillator controls here. You see we've got these switches, and this is, again, something kind of fairly, I guess, kind of new for the Trigon. We've got, you know, here's a sawtooth. If we want, we can add in a triangle as well. And if we want to bring in the square, we've got that as well. I should say pulse. So we've actually got 3 oscillators running from, you know, from this single oscillator, 3 oscillator sounds. So in actual fact, we could have 9 oscillators running just directly from the oscillator section here. So this is actually a really nice thing. You can basically kind of decide which oscillators you want. And if you want, you can just take them all off, and now we've got no sound. You know, running through here, we've got the triangle, nice and kind of soft. A little bit like a crunchy sine wave, I always think. And we've got the sawtooth, of course. Nice and buzzy. But I think one of the real special things about the Trigon is the amount of pulse width on this. It's pulse width heavy, for sure. It's got a wide pulse.
Can we please have an image of Nick Bat with a halo?
Exactly right. You know, yeah, I think Nick's going to really enjoy this one, simply because, I mean, obviously, you know, oscillators have square waves, pulse width waves, but it just seems to me that, you know, the control just being directly next to it here just really works lovely. So it's got a really nice kind of...
All the way to 0.
All the way to 0 as well. And of course, they're all independent pulse width controls. So if I bring in the second oscillator now here, just detune that a little bit. So there's a lot of shaping already to be had with that. Now, of course, we've got a third oscillator there, so let's bring that in as well. And then, if we want, we can just go to our LFO controls up here. It's super simple to, you know, kind of assign the LFO to things. You've just got pulse wave 1, pulse wave 2, pulse wave 3. Let's take it off the oscillator, so we're not getting any vibrato there. But now, so now we've got all that pulse width. So there's a lot of richness going on with the sound already there, and that's before we're going anywhere near the filter or the effects or the distortions or anything like that. I really enjoy using pulse width on this. I think it's got, it just seems to have a kind of a nice special flavour, I'd say. Yeah, and of course we've got our octave controls as well. So getting pretty big. Yeah, so we can get pretty big, and just, you know, you've got loads of really great controls over the oscillators.
I get turned on by that.
You're not alone, Jack.
The raw and nice, unique implementation of that, it seems like.
Yeah, I think it just seems really accessible. You know, you've got the pulse width oscillator switch there, and it's directly next to pulse width. It's just begging to be kind of used in that way.
These two bad boys, what were we talking?
So, which ones are we doing? Oh, the volumes here, or
the
these?
Feedback drive.
Okay, well, I think, yeah, I mean, I think
Do you want to go there?
I think we should go there. Should we go there now? Yeah, let's go there now. Okay, so I'm going to play a low sawtooth. Okay, now feedback is basically, this is an old trick. This is an old trick you could do on kind of old MonoSynths that really kind of were a lot of inspiration for this instrument, you know. And basically, the trick here is on, for example, on a Model D or something like that, you could take the output and it had an audio input. So you could take the output and feed it back into the audio input, and that would basically form a feedback loop for the sort of the post filter. So it would go back in and the filter would be starting to feed back on itself. So here, got the same thing. You feel it kind of starting to burn there, but it gets really hairy once we start getting down there. So, you know, that the feedback is that's kind of a really special control on this one, I'd say. It's just got loads of character, loads of body, and it's a beast. It's a beast. The drive, on the other hand, is basically just, I guess, kind of a little sort of gain boost of the oscillators before they go into the filter. So if let's just bring the filter down, resonance up a little bit. It's pretty subtle on the drive here. You can just hear it kind of having a nice subtle effect on there, and then it's just giving a little bit of extra bite going into the filter.
Is it like juice in the mixer, almost?
Exactly right. Yeah, I mean, it's essentially, I guess, like a gain control, you could think of it, for the volumes of the oscillators going in. But that's kind of nice and subtle. That's just kind of bringing a little bit of extra flavour going into the filter. But then, of course, you know, I mean, that's just a monster. You can hear, because it's all, of course, it's all pure analog electronics in here. You know, it's kind of having kind of crazy little harmonic interactions with the sound as well. So, yeah.
My favourite synth of last year was this PWM Malevolent.
And
that was the first time, and that's doing that. But
yeah.
Poly.
Yeah, but in
This
Poly,
seems to be the trip, right?
Yeah,
you're getting
absolutely,
all of that,
yeah.
but polyphonic.
Well, that's it, and I think that's actually quite an interesting thing, because the filter itself, the ladder filter, it's a really beefy filter. You know, it sits really well on MonoSynths. You know, that's where you kind of, that's where it cut its teeth. That's where it was originally kind of designed for. And of course, you know, sticking that into a PolySynth is quite a challenge, really, because, you know, when you've got 6 voices stacked up on top of each other, and there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of energy going on with the filter, and you know, kind of a lot of sound dressing with the filter, you know, it can start to get a little bit kind of muddy, a little bit kind of, you know, sort of, yeah, kind of chunky. So the voicing on the synth, nice, and, you know, you can get that, and obviously we can bring in a little bit of envelope to that as well. So let's just get a bit of...
Great layout.
So, you know, already that's kind of, you know, like your traditional kind of mono sound, and then if we kind of do the... Yeah, so we've got this really chunky ladder filter, but the way it's been kind of designed, it just sits really nicely in the polyphonic world. It's a 4-pole filter, naturally. So it's got quite a steep cut-off slope, 24 dB per octave, as you would expect. But we've also got the 2-pole switch there as well. Now this, I guess, is kind of new. This isn't what you would find on the older kind of MonoSynths. The 2-pole basically just kind of halves the filters. We've got 12 dB per octave now. So it's a lot less kind of extreme. So that's a nice kind of flavour to have with it as well. And of course, let's just take all the oscillators off. There we go. Because if you've got resonance, it's an analog filter. So if we bring up the resonance... Oh, we've got the envelope amount on there. So we've actually got a, you know, self-oscillating sine wave here. Now at the minute, there's no keyboard tracking, basically the cutoff is not following sort of travel of the keyboard, but we've got a switch here that lets you kind of have half travel. So if I play an octave, or if we go to full, now the filter is going to track the keyboard perfectly. So we've got a nice pure sine wave there without having to use any of the oscillators. And this is kind of nice because after the filter, we've got the distortion here. So
this is the one bit I did sneak at the website. It's just stereo analog distortion, right?
Absolutely right. So yeah, so that's here. And it's really beautiful as well. So again, we're just listening to the filter here, but then why don't we stick some effects on? So actually, I'll go over to Effect B. We've got 2 effect slots here and a real wide range of effects. Go for a nice kind of spring reverb. Yeah, we'll do that. And I'll just take the damping down, put the volume up a bit, and then. And again, this is just filter. This isn't any oscillators. So if we just bring the feedback down. You can aim for the brown note with that one.
I love the implementation of the screens and the effects. I've got the P6.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this seems a lot clearer already. I'm like, oh, that's what I wish was on the P6.
I think the layout, I mean, if you compare the Prophet 6 and this, you get to see really how much the Trigon has got. It kind of compared to it. You know, obviously the P6 is a fantastic instrument. It's got a different kind of approach. You know, you've got your high pass, low pass.
It's been out for a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time. I don't know exactly how old.
So it's nice for me as a P6 user to see that there's been some ergonomic advancements.
Absolutely. Yeah, indeed. And you're right. The effects section just up here, it's pretty straightforward. You've got an A/B switch. You can just switch over. Here we've got part A, so again, I can just find what I want. We've got different delays, bucket brigade, standard delay, chorus, phasers, ring modulator, flanges. So we've got kind of nice, I guess, time-based effects on that side. And then if we go to part B, then you've got all your reverbs as well in addition to those. So, you know, you've got a nice kind of smorgasbord of sounds to work with. So yeah, it's all there. And then again, you know, fairly sort of stripped back kind of controls over the effects, but just the things that you need. So, you know, you've got your 2 different parameters here to control the various things. A dry wet for each of them. You can just A/B and then just kind of dry wet with that, which is really nice. And of course, if you're working on, you know, delays and that sort of thing, you might want to sync it, or even maybe with a phaser or stuff like that, you can just hit the sync button and it's going to be in time then as well. So
menus.
Yeah, so everything is, as I say, you know, just everything is there. There's no kind of, okay, I want to go to my effects page and kind of dial in all the details there. It's just there sat in front of you. So it's a really nice, accessible system.
Things, Arpeggiator Sequencer.
For sure.
Are they similar to the ones in the other ones?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, again, the sequencer I think is really lovely. Bring that down a touch, maybe. Oh, maybe not.
It's beautiful.
It's great, isn't it? The sequences have been so well programmed.
Well, that's just in there.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's per patch as well. You store all of that stuff per patch, which is pretty insane. There are 1,000 preset slots in here. The first 500 are user, so you can store into there, and 500 through to 999 are the kind of the factory presets. They're actually mirrored. When you get it out of the box, the first 500 are actually the same as the second 500, but the first 500 you can store your own patches in, of course. But as I say, that's also including sequence data. So if I go to a different patch, let's go to this one, hit play. And, you know, it's so easy that the sequencer's really lovely to use. Let's just get a sound. We'll go back to this kind of nice brassy. Okay, so we just hit record, and then we can just kind of, it's polyphonic as well, of course. So there we've got a step in. I can just hold this chord, make it legato for another few beats, and then I'll just play, actually, yeah, we've got the velocity on there, so I'm just gonna... And you can just build up the sequence like that, and again, of course, as I say, it's... Anyway, that'll do, 13-step sequence, but I quite like odd numbers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so if we hit play now... So So super easy to store. And now, you know, if I save that, that's going to be part of the patch. So all that sequence data is actually stored with the patch, which is really, really neat.
That's cool. Like when you're cooking up your own sounds, you could put in a sequence and it kind of triggers you that way.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And the other great thing about the sequencer, of course, is if I do hit play on that, and I'm going to move the keyboard up an octave here. So you can also play on top of the sequence as well, which I think is a really, really nice function.
Now, pan spread, vintage, these two.
Yeah, for sure. So, of course, you know, with it being, you know, it's an analog synth, but we're using modern analog electronics. So if we kind of, you know, if we just go back to the init patch, so we're pretty kind of pretty solid, everything's nicely in tune and stuff. But of course, you know, one of the great things about analog stuff, certainly, you know, the kind of the heritage of analog stuff is that old analog electronics is not stable. It's not kind of perfectly tuned. There are distortions, there's all kinds of weird, iffy things going on. And that's exactly what the vintage knob does there. It just gives it a different kind of flavor. It's kind of almost affecting the circuits to kind of dial in that old kind of circuit behavior. So if I'll just look in a C minor. Bring in another oscillator. So it's basically just giving you that kind of analog kind of additional function. I mean, I think if you look on the Prophet 6, it's called the slop. And it's it's just doing kind of the same sort of thing there.
There was a change in philosophy with it. Was there from because the slop was on there, and then, as I understand it, I mean, this shows you how much of a layman I am. But like you've worked on the vintage. It's different to slop, and like things like on the P5 that you released.
Yeah, the Prophet 5 has got the kind of the various different kind of
iterations. You added it in firmware. Yeah, that's it. And then, but to have it on the front, it shows again you're buying at the end of all this development, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, it's basically it's tuned to kind of give that flavour.
And the pan spread, I dig. I use it all the time.
I mean, the pan spread is great. Let's just get a different kind of. And then
again with the poly, it's just a dream.
Yeah, and then you just grab the pan spread and just spread that out. Now you'd have to listen in stereo or headphones with it. But it just widens everything out.
Yeah, with a bit of glide. It's got the polyphonic glide.
If we turn the glide on there, yeah.
That's why I bought the Prophet in the first place, and I'd buy this just for that.
Again, you know, it's just super kind of, super easy sound, but it sounds brilliant.
Now this clock, seems like a big deal to give it that much real estate.
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, it's just giving you access to the internal clock. Now, you can clock this in many ways. You can clock it with MIDI. You can, actually, I didn't bring it, but if I'd got a little drum machine I was going to use for the sequencer, because there's a sequencer jack on here as well. That will advance the sequencer through for you as well, which is really nice.
This seems like the modular heads are going to dig
well,
this as well.
I mean, basically, this is just giving you access to the clock. So, of course, you've got BPM there. You can choose what BPM you're running at, but then you've got different clock speeds here. So, I mean, we could try this with the arpeggiator. So if I just kind of, let's do a hold. So we're on 30 seconds there, so it's just, we've got our tempo, of course, but let's say we're stuck at 102, and we just want to divide that down.
It's just really clear.
Yeah, it's just a very simple, quick, easy, accessible kind of thing. And that works for the sequencer as well. So, you know, if we go to quarter notes, let's put that sequencer. I don't know what's going on here with the sound, and if we speed that up, The great thing about the sequencer, of course, is now we're hands-free for noodlement. So lots of, that's why we had a
And then over here, we've got one LFO.
Yep, one
that's routable. I love the routing system.
Yeah.
PolyMod, and that seems to be different.
So that's pretty powerful, I'd say. So again, we'll go back to a basic patch, and Let's just bring...
This is a real sequential centrepiece in the PolyMod concept.
Yeah, for sure. This is something that I think Dave developed for, I don't know which was the original, I think it was probably the Prophet 5, but I'm afraid I'm not exactly certain. But basically what's going on here is, you know, we've got our LFO. We know what an LFO is, hopefully, and that is basically a low-frequency oscillator that we can apply to a sound. So if I just kind of apply an amount to the filter, so we're doing our thing there, and we can go to sawtooth. But if you listen, there's one LFO there. It's a global LFO. It's controlling the filter for all 6 voices at the same time, which is great, of course, and that's exactly kind of what we want from an LFO a lot of the time. But with the PolyMod, this is kind of where, I suppose you could call it like the secret sauce of the sequential kind of thing, because what's going on here is we can either use oscillator 3 or the filter envelope here to do similar things. So we've got, you know, the filter envelope here. Maybe if we apply that to the pitch of oscillator 1, so I'll just put an amount on there, put an attack, bit of decay, we'll bring the sustain down, and so, okay, so we're using an envelope there to shape the pitch control of the oscillator. The oscillator 3 is where it gets really interesting, because we're essentially going into frequency modulation world. And the third oscillator here, so, you know, we've got 3 oscillators, but the third oscillator can actually be treated as an additional per voice LFO. And this is kind of where a lot of kind of power can come out of it. If we go to, I don't know, let's go to a triangle. I look like that,
I'm like, I don't know what to do with it, but I know that people are always excited.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's say, so here, I've got a triangle wave here, an oscillator 3, and I've put a triangle onto oscillator 1, so. Yeah, so let's just bring the resonance down. So now, if I go to frequency 1, what we're going to do is we're going to take this very fast audio rate oscillator, not as a low frequency oscillator, but as an audio rate oscillator to actually wobble oscillator 1 around. So if we just... And this is basically FM, I guess. And you can hear those really nice, interesting side bands coming out. There we go. And of course, we've got different octaves for oscillator 3. So if we go up an octave.
Oh, real FM-y.
So we can do that, but the interesting thing with oscillator 3 is, of course, well, first, there's many interesting things. Firstly, we've got a couple of different wave shapes, so let's just add all the oscillator wave shapes in. And we can actually take that out of the mix. So you can, you know, kind of use the different oscillator shapes to give you different flavours of FM with it. Again, on oscillator 3, you see we've got a triangle, sawtooth and pulse for 1 and 2. And if you look on the third one, you've got a ramp down and a ramp up for the sawtooths there. The interesting thing there is that, again, with the octave control, we can go to low, 2 octaves, as all the oscillators do, or we can go to very low. So now it's kind of like a true LFO. And let's see, let's apply that to the filter. So you've got the different shapes there to work with. And of course, oscillator 3 is attached to the keyboard at this point. So if I play down here, it's going to be slower. Let's go for ramp down. If I play up here, it's going to be higher. So, you know, in terms of LFO, that's kind of tracking the keyboard and increasing speed, but we can detach it from the keyboard like that, and now. Yeah, so you've got a lot of different control here with oscillator 3, and of course that's here in the PolyMod. Now we can hear the kind of the per voice thing in this little patch with the filter. So if I press a note here, that's a single voice being used. We're just kind of getting that sound. If I add another note to it, we're adding another voice and therefore another instance of the oscillator to control that filter. And you can hear it out of, you know, it's out of sync. So you can kind of get this nice kind of delay kind of effect with that.
That is such a clear explanation of this AfterTouch, and this is how you. Yeah. It seems like a big deal here.
Yeah,
about how you're routing it.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to another patch. I don't know what this one's like, but so on the AfterTouch here now, you can just use the expression
filter, and then is it as easy if I want the pitch?
Yeah, do it. Switch it on.
That easy. Come on. And how much?
Just got wild. So there's loads of kind of nice things. Yeah, really simple to work with.
And real douchebag question.
Go for it.
Different wood. What are we talking about?
That's it. Yeah. So I think this is a maple. And yeah, different. You know, we all like wood. It's essential for any analog synthesizer to have wood in any sheets.
It is. I wouldn't buy one.
You know, it obviously makes it sound warmer.
Man, this is.
What
a great.
Yeah, no, this is it's a different look. I mean, again, it's kind of differentiating itself from the other two in that kind of, as I say, in that kind of series, the Prophet 6, OB6 and the Trigon-6. And yeah, it's a lighter wood, it's a different flavour, it just gives it its own personality in its own place.
Now, having spent some time with all of it's a real series, isn't it? The 6-voice series. I tried to stay away from the internet before I did this video, but a lot of what I saw was an initial reaction from the punters out there being like, well, why? What's the difference?
Yeah.
You spent some time with it, unlike, I'm sure, some of those people. Yeah. What's your take on it?
One thing that I've kind of found with this is that it's really kind of, I say sort of pared back. This synth won't do absolutely everything. It doesn't have all the kind of the bells and whistles and go away and make me a cup of tea kind of controls on there. But what it does have is a curated set of exactly the right controls that you need, and also, you know, Dave Smith's design and all the guys over at Sequential in San Francisco are really kind of, you know, it's all about the sound and the quality of the sound. And I think you find that with all Sequential instruments. So for me, this is just kind of easy to use, great sounding synthesizer that is just kind of, you know, it's just immediate. Everything that you need is just directly in front of you. You don't have to go diving around in menus to find where that particular control is or how to, you know, to do that sort of stuff. It's just all here. And it makes for a really immediate instrument to play. It's a really versatile instrument as well. You know, I keep going back to this huge brassy patch. You know, it's just massive. And then, you know, if we just flip over here, I don't know what this one's like, but here's a bit more delicate and a bit different. So it's got a huge, broad palette of different sounds that it can achieve. The things that I really like on it, I think I'm a big fan of this distortion. You know, I can just kind of go back to a basic patch, just a bit of a detune. And it's, I mean, you know, I just ramped it right the way up there and kind of didn't really design much of a patch behind it. But that distortion, it really kind of, I've had moments when I've been playing with this, just brought the distortion up and it's just made me think I'm actually playing a bit of guitar in a band or something. It's just got that kind of, yeah, it's the right sort of distortion for the sounds that it produces. I think it's really lovely. I mean, it's a good all-rounder. It's a 6-voice, you know, and it's got its own personality. It's got its own flavour. You know, if you have a Prophet 6 or if you have an OB6 or something like that, you know, this is going to sit lovely next to it, you know. It's not going to basically replace that or anything like that. You know, I think for me, a really great pairing would be an OB6 and this. You've got a huge amount of sound range there. But of course, that's pretty much largely down to the way that the filters are. You know, this is a different type of filter. It's a different flavour. You know, I guess it's like Stratocasters versus, you know, Les Pauls or something like that. You know, they all have 6 strings. They've all got oscillators, but they just have a different personality and flavour. And that's kind of largely down to the filter, but also some of the other fancy additions that have been thrown into this as well.
Awesome. So come try it out.
Definitely.
If you're skeptical, that's Andertons. We're a shop. We're in Guildford. And if you're not in Andertons, we can send it out to you. You can try the thing and send it back. if you don't like it.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
you might get your hands on it and want to keep it.
Yeah, I think you will. Yeah, I think more the ones you send back won't come back that quickly. But I think that's a really important thing because, you know, we're giving a flavour of this over, you know, a YouTube channel, but actually it's all about hands-on with this.
Oh, hearing it in the room, different thing.
Absolutely. When you hear the air moving with this and you kind of, you know, you experience the energy of that feedback really cranked, you know, it's a different kind of sensation than just kind of, you know, simply watching a video. So definitely come and try it out.
And we have different financing options. I get it, it's spenny, right? You know, like when you were talking about premium bits of kit, and if you're lusting for it, don't put yourself at an imposition buying it, but there are ways, talk to the guys in the shop, there are ways to do it responsibly. To synth responsibly.
Synth responsibly, always.
Thanks so much for being here, mate.
My pleasure.
Awesome. And check out, there'll be another video where we're just playing through the thing. I look forward to videos in the future with you, mate. And thanks, Falcon, and we'll see you again soon. See ya!